if there were a Bible movie that was as powerful as The Prince of Egypt and as fun as Tangled? That's about as likely to happen as David beating Goliath. See what I did there? Well, it's happening. We are making an epic David and Goliath animated film. David will be an animated feature film that shows the power of the David story with the humor, music, and adventure of your favorite animated movie. And by expressing your interest in investing, you can help bring David to life with the production quality of a classic animated film while revealing God through one of the Bible's most powerful stories.
Did you see that? Anyone!
A group of filmmakers in South Africa called Sunrise Animation Studios has been carefully assembling the right team to make David. This David project has already generated $19 million in investments and inspired some of the world's leading animation film professionals to leave major Hollywood studios and be a part of this story. The Sunrise team includes senior contributors to movies like Moana, Monsters, Inc., Soul, and Big Hero 6. As well as Grammy Award-winning composers. Basically, David is the answer to the question, what if the best Bible stories were told by the world's best animators and musicians? Click the link to express your interest today. David tells the story of a young shepherd who gains fame as a musician and a warrior for the king.
I'm trying to protect us from this Philistine.
He shows the viewer what it truly means to be a man after God's own heart. David is the original underdog that has gone on to inspire the greatest underdog stories of all time. Don't believe me? Just re-watch Harry Potter and Star Wars. Instead of using magic or the Force to defeat giant villains, David uses the power of God to overcome a literal Goliath. And he reminds each of us that we're the underdog of our own stories. And through God, all things are possible. David's story has never been told on a cinematic level. And to accomplish that, you need a combination of a good budget and good storytellers. The faith community has the right storytellers, but most independent Bible films look like independent Bible films. But with your investments, combined with the storytelling prowess of Sunrise Animation Studios, we are finally telling David's story in a way that belongs on the silver screen. And, did I mention, it's a musical? So beautiful. The creation of David the movie is a Goliath-sized story. Sunrise knew that in order for a small film studio to make an epic movie on par with the big boys, they'd have to nail it between the eyes, pun intended. And after all these years, they've assembled the right team to go the distance. All that's missing is you. Click the link to watch a small teaser we made for David. David will be distributed by Angel Studios, the same film studio behind the smash hit success The Chosen, a TV show about Jesus that has over 300 million views and has generated over $100 million in revenue. Sunrise Animation Studios created Jungle Beat, an animated brand that has a feature movie on Netflix with a sequel in production and gets 140 million monthly views on YouTube. If they can do that with a monkey and an elephant, imagine what they can do with one of the most iconic figures of all time. When you express interest in investing in the animated film David, you're not just helping to create an epic animated adventure based on one of the most popular books of all time. You're creating a movie in one of the most successful categories of film. The Prince of Egypt made $218 million in revenue at the box office, plus 2 decades of DVD, TV, and streaming sales. And like The Prince of Egypt, David also has powerful songs and breathtaking animation. Plus, one thing The Prince of Egypt doesn't have, this baby lamb. You do the math. And aside from the potential financial return, bringing such an important story to life can be incredibly rewarding.
Hi there, my name is Cunningham, and I was inspired by this character and thought if we could tell an animated feature film around the life of David, it would inspire people to take on the giants in their life and to live bigger, braver, bolder lives.
David has the chance to be the next big movie that every kid, parent, and Pixar fan will fall in love with. Click the link to express interest in investing today.
Hi everyone, welcome to this live stream on David, an animated feature film. I'd just like to especially welcome Wingfeather fans because we've got incredibly special guests on tonight, which is Chris Wall and Andrew Peterson, the executive producer and the creator behind Wingfeather. We're going to introduce them just now and get onto that. But welcome to everyone actually on this call, but especially to the Wingfeather fans who've joined us. I just quickly wanted to dive in before we get into tonight's program. It's always important for me is to answer the question, why David? Why an animated film and why David? And why David for me? In Acts it says, I found in David, son of Jesse, a man after my own heart. And I grew up in Zimbabwe, and I think the first movie I saw, I was like 14 years old. And where I grew up in the wild, you could canoe for 4 days, 5 nights and not see a human being, just elephants, buffalo, thunderstorms. And it was in that environment that I really met God and just fell in love with this incredibly expansive, wild, beautiful character, but full of gentleness and kindness as well. You could see it in a little pink or white flower along the edge of the river. And I just fell in love with his heart. And as I got to university, I was really struck by how many people viewed God, if at all, but if they did view him, they viewed him as like this boring, stuffy headmaster who was always angry. And I was like, wow, that's just not the God I met and the God I fell in love with. And in David's story, I could relate to it so much because he was a shepherd. He was out in the wild. He was fighting lions and bears. And he kind of captured my imagination because he wasn't a perfect human being, but he was a human being who fell in love with God. And so I became inspired to tell his story because I thought if we could tell an incredible story on David in an animated feature film manner, it would just really help people have a window into God's heart. So that's some of the reason why David. There's a lot more to tell, but I just love his character, just who he was, and just this beautiful, expansive character. And by the way, the guys are posting at the bottom some pledges. See, Jean-Louis just pledged $500. And just to say thank you so much, hey, for anyone who pledges this evening. It's just such a massive support. What we're doing through pledges, by the way, we're trying to gauge interest. And then if the interest is strong, which so far it's been absolutely incredible. I mean, if you go on, what is it again, angelstudios.com/David, if you can just put that up on the screen. There we go, angel.com/David. It's just incredible to see the support that this movie's already had. So thank you guys, because as you pledge, it really helps us decipher whether to go forward and go to a proper fundraising round. But so far, it's just the support is just incredible. And we'll get onto that with the Wingfeather guys later. I'm actually wearing the Angel Studios shirt tonight, which we'll dive into and explain a little bit more why Angel Studios, why crowdfunding as a possible route, and how that links to distribution. But I'll save that discussion with Chris and Andrew. The other thing I want to dive into later this evening is just for all of us on this call, why animation? And that's why it's great to have the Wingfeather guys on here as well, because I've got this passion that animation crosses race, cultural, age, and gender barriers better than any other medium. If you look at this map of the world behind me, animation just connects with the globe. It's just got this incredible power and ages. So it connects with children, with grandparents, with gender, with race, with just crosses geography so beautifully. And I love storytelling. Storytelling to me is just this incredibly powerful tool. It's like a Trojan horse. It gets under people's defense mechanisms for good or bad and plants a seed or a thought in their mind. So I'm just so passionate about storytelling, and animation as a form of storytelling is just so awesome because it just goes global. I'm just going to read Melissa's comment there. My little boys were so sad when the preview ended and said they wanted to watch the rest. We can't wait to see more. And what we haven't shown tonight, by the way, is the actual little 5-minute demo we did. We'll see if we get time at the end. But just so you can actually see a full piece of animation, we'll see if we get time to put that in. And Ratsu says, and he's better than Star Wars and Harry Potter because he's real, 100%. And what I love about David, he's so real. We know he was not perfect, but we know through his faith in God that he conquered giants, and that's just so beautiful. Before we introduce our guests, which I'm looking forward to doing so much, I just want to quickly talk about the David Awards, because this is our last week where you can nominate for the David Awards. So on screen, I'd just like to put up a little bit about the David Awards, and I'll just talk you through it briefly. So if we can just put up a slide there on the David Awards. Here's an example, by the way, of a recent nomination, which I'll just read to you. So you go, by the way, hashtag David Award nomination. So for my late Aunt Rosie, she battled breast cancer for nearly 4 years. She inspired all those who came in contact with her through her strength and faith and throughout her battle, which also inspired me to write Giant Slayer, the song. So, James, thank you so much. That's an incredible example of a nomination that we're looking for. And I'll just dive onto the slides to explain what the awards are about. And so I'll talk around the slide for a moment. It's if we can go back to what the award system is, that other slide. It's basically an award system that anyone can be nominated. We're looking for people. There it is, an award system that recognizes modern day Davids, those who exhibit the true spirit of David: fearlessness, humility, compassion, loyalty, bravery, and honor. And as we live in this world, I don't know with you guys, but I've bumped into so many people who are not in the news or in the press, but when I look at their lives, I'm just blown away. They're in my mind a modern day David. They're taking on a giant, but in a corner of the world where no one's seeing them and no one's acknowledging it. And so we wanted to bring an award system where you can bring people in your life who you feel are like a David and who really show the spirit of David. And then we're going to be doing some really awesome prizes, and part of it would be a signed picture of concept art from the directors. So we're going to choose 5 winners of this award system, and we're going to do it on the 30th of November. We'll next week start talking about how to vote. But just so you know, there's some awesome prizes, and this is how you go about it. You basically, just to be clear, it can be anyone, and you can be nominating someone who's 4 years old who's shown courage, or someone who's 90 years old. It doesn't matter how old or what walk of life they're coming from. And the way you go about it, you create a post on Facebook or Instagram with the hashtag David Award nomination. Then you tag us, and plus tag your nominee on our Facebook page at The David Movie, or our Instagram page at the David Movie Official. And you can go on there to see our submissions. And we'd just love to hear from you. If there's someone in your life, even tonight, if there's one of you on the live stream who'd like to nominate someone, please, we'd just love to bring their story and just really celebrate Davids who are out there in the world. So that's the David Awards. Please keep an eye on this space. We just really feel it'd be cool to get that going and actually recognize people who are showing David-like qualities and taking on giants in their life. So we're going to dive in. Just to talk quickly again about pledges. And so tonight, if you want to support us, please just go to angel.com/David. And that's how you can support us and just show your interest in whether you want to get behind this animated feature film. Wow, and there's someone who's put $5,000. Thank you, really, thank you so much. It's just incredible. And every $150, every single dollar just moves us forward. And just so you guys know, coming into this movie, we've already spent $19 million on this movie, and then we're looking to raise a whole lot more to finish it. So the pledges are really helpful, and thank you for those pledges that are going to come in. That are coming in. So it's really a privilege. Someone else has also pledged $1,000. Thank you, guys. That's really, really so exciting. Tonight, though, I'd like to jump onto our guests for the evening. Well, evening my time, daytime your time, and we're really lucky and privileged to have Andrew Peterson and Chris Wall from Wingfeather. They're in the middle of production, so thank you guys for giving up your time. But maybe you guys could join us on screen. So welcome, Chris. Welcome, Andrew.
Hey, Phil. How are you?
Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for joining. And just to say, I'm a huge fan, like so many people on this live stream, of your work. And yeah, just thank you guys. Tell us a little bit. I mean, you're in the middle of production. Is it like a rodeo? How's it all going on your side? And when are you hoping to finish? And I asked Andrew this question earlier, Chris, before you came out. I'm interested to see if your answer is the same as Andrew's. But what is it like? Is it like a rodeo? When are you hoping to finish, for starters?
Oh, man, that's so good. I assume that because you assume everything in Tennessee is a rodeo, Phil. It's not. We're diverse.
Well, it's not like a rodeo. It's like a country.
Yeah, it's like
really
a country
sad
song.
country song.
That's because we're in Nashville. Why do you got to bring up rodeo?
Yeah.
It is quite a journey. In our case, because we were this very small development studio to go into full production speed, and all, as you know, the assets that are required, the brilliant artists that join your team. It's quite a lot. It's a bit of drinking from a fire hose, and so much beauty. And I think Andrew and I both are in this space of, when you're collaborating in animation, there's so much that others are bringing to what you're creating. And yeah. I think what I've enjoyed in my career is being able to take that, and I know Andrew's good at this too, and going, yes, a little more of this, less of this, not ever shutting down anyone, but being able to help kind of guide this, all wonderful contributors. It's been amazing. That spigot's slowly opening. We head into animation starting in January. And so, as you know, before you animate something, you have to have all the elements in place, the rigging and all the sculpts and all the texture, like all that has to be ready. So we're definitely in that window of, and be really confident in your animatic, that your story's right, all that. So we're in that window right now, and it's wonderful and intense, and it's a good season.
Yeah, every time I think that we're like, I'm sorry. I was going to say every time, like this is my first time through the brush, really being involved in this kind of a thing before as the author of the stories or whatever. So it's like animation 101 for me in some ways. And every time I think, oh, cool. Yeah, we're pretty much done. Like thinking this through, Chris will be like, oh, but now we have to think about props, or we have to, like earlier today, we had a long meeting about music and the scoring and the whatever. It's like, I keep thinking we're kind of done. And then you're like, oh yeah, when you're making films or series, there's like a million spokes on that wheel.
We had a lengthy conversation yesterday about what exactly does a toothy cow sound like when it's eating, when it's being scared. Like, it was the most whimsical, like weird conversation that a bunch of adults are in a room very seriously. This is cartoon and animation world, right? Where we think about very silly things very seriously. Yes,
it's a delight to like realize that we've been saying thwap and toothy cow for 30 minutes and nobody has smiled.
Exactly.
So, a quick one for me. I was reading a book recently about someone it was called Producing for Animation, and the author was incredible. She said at the end of her first movie, I'll never repeat that. I'm going to be more organized next time. And 5 movies later, she realized it's the exact same rodeo, if I can use that word again. So your production is a chaotic mess, but it's beautiful. Andrew, I actually had a question for you. You're an amazing musician, and what do you prefer? Is it storytelling and writing, or is it music? Like, what's your favorite creative outlet?
It's usually whatever I'm not doing at the time is my favorite thing. If I'm like really in the thick of the film thing, I'm thinking, man, I love playing music. I wish I was on stage right now. And when I'm on stage and I'm doing the grueling travel, I'm like, gosh, those guys are having so much fun making the movie. Spinning a lot of plates is a kind of a bad idea in some ways, but it also keeps this energy, And I think being multidisciplinary means that, in some way that I can't articulate, understanding how songwriting works helps you understand how storytelling works too, and vice versa.
Exactly.
So bouncing back and forth between them all. And then in the middle of it, there's this overlap where it's all, and I think at the heart of it, it's storytelling really. And just different kinds of storytelling, which is, makes me happy.
I love that. A quick one. I'm proudly wearing this Angel Studio shirt tonight. For those of you, I'll come to this in a second. But for those of you just joining us, we're talking about David, an animated feature film. We've got very special guests with Chris and Andrew from Wingfeather Saga, just telling us about their journey with storytelling and animation. And if you want to see how you can support us, you can go to angelstudio.com/David. But quick one, I want to talk about Angel Studios because I've got my own little story about them. But why, for you guys and your journey into animation, why Angel Studios? Why did you choose them? What are the positives you see about them? And why that route? And how's it been for you with Angel?
Yeah.
Well, I think that, we got introduced, like a lot of people, with The Chosen TV series and the way in which it was able to get to audiences. I think a lot of us, as you can make content, but getting it to an audience that wants to see it is so difficult today. There's so much noise. And I thought they had such an innovative way of building a community of people that could help champion around. And then I think the app is such an interesting way for people to find things and not have to dig through menus of different streamers. And then their just willingness to champion interesting and distinctive content that really, as they say, inspires and works for families. It was something that we really shared. We got to visit with them out there at their studios and really get a sense of Jeffrey and Neil and kind of their heart for what they wanted to do. And it really was transformative. I think when we spent our time there, got to walk through the set of The Chosen. They just finished filming that segment. That was really cool. Mm-hmm. But their heart to let content creators tell their best stories and then come alongside and just cheer for you and help you to find your audience and to help to tell your story in the best way possible. All those elements just facilitating. Someone had said years ago, the great joy in giving is being able to inspire others to give and to be a part. And I think this community way in which people come around content as investors in this case, but being able to say, I'm a part of that. There's something about that that just the community and echoes our own lives and our faith traditions and all of these things in ways that was really inspirational. And knowing that it wasn't just one gatekeeper, as you know that term a bunch, right? The gatekeeper, right, of Disney, keeper of these different giants, saying yes and no to what goes out to shape culture. That you're saying, community of people, tell us what you think should go out and shape your community and your culture. That's been the delightful thing about all parts of Angel Studios for us.
Yeah, I love that. You've described it so well, Chris. And for me, the other thing I liked about them, when David went to fight Goliath, it was interesting because just using that as an allegory, when he went into that battlefield, people try to put Saul's armor in like a sword and a shield, but actually had to take off the traditional ways of doing things and pick up the box. And he actually went to fight with a sling. And what inspired me about the Angel Studios guys, when they watched the David demo, they literally got on an airplane, flew to Cape Town, and I was like, wow, these guys are adventurous. They're up for it, And, so for me, just the spirit of adventure and the way they think out the box, I was like, I really love the way they're thinking. When the rest of the world zigs, they zag. It's just such an awesome way of thinking, And also, I love the idea you're saying, Chris, about bringing community in. So I just love that concept of community working with us to build something and take it forward. I think it's just incredible. Yeah.
And I would just offer too, I remember there being a real low point for us. It was after one of the major networks streamers had said no, and Andrew and his wife came over with ice cream for Heather and I to sit, and we all had and ate ice cream and felt really sad about being told no, that they didn't want our series. And I remember even in that moment, there was this hope and curiosity about what God was going to do next, like what the next chapter would be, that we had thought it was going to go to this destination and then it didn't. And so, okay, what is it? And we weren't hopeless. We certainly enjoyed the ice cream, but we were hopeful about what would happen next. And to know this road led here, we couldn't have dreamed of it, at that time.
I would say too, as like the author, every time we went and had a meeting with somebody, Hollywood people, it was all exciting, but also we left with this sense that like I couldn't put my finger on that it didn't feel right, like there was just like, I don't know if they get what we're trying to do here. And also, the whole idea that like you've got to give up some control of what the story is going to be. And like we didn't want to like just hand somebody this thing we loved and let somebody else go do it. Or we had this very definite and nuanced idea of what it is, of the kind of story we wanted to tell. And I just never felt right as the author, just giving the keys to somebody else. So the fact that Angel Studios kind of said, no, we're gonna let you drive the car. We're gonna come alongside you, and allow you to tell the story the way that it needs to be told, was like a dream. I remember talking to my brother afterwards. I was like, I can't believe that we found a situation that was going to allow us to tell this story without having to make these concessions that we would have had to have made any other way.
That's an incredible point. Now, I've got another question for you, Andrew, but just to go with what you're saying there, it's just incredible as creators that you can get to the head of a project. You're not driven by a committee or a boardroom. And I've got a great saying that a camel is a racehorse designed by a committee. And I think so much of what comes out of some of that corporate philosophy is like you just lose that X factor and that originality. So as a creator, it's such a privilege. The Angel Studios model, by the way, thank you so much. There's so many pledges coming in, and someone just pledged another 5,000. I was just tracking all the along the bottom. Thank you, guys. It's just incredible. But what I was just saying, Andrew, to that point, it's just so amazing to have that freedom as a creator to really be at the head of it, and you can be original, not derivative. Andrew, I have a question for you. Just actually, so not about us, but if there's any young artists out there, aspiring creatives, I know how long my journey was. Can you just tell the audience how long when did you start writing those books? When did you publish your first book? And when did that translate into like this animation series? How long has this journey been? And I'd just love to hear, what it was like for you.
Yeah. So I I'm a singer-songwriter as my kind of other day job. And so I moved to Nashville to do music. I love to do music. I love to sing and write songs. But somewhere in there, I remember, it was when I read the Narnia books to my kids that I remembered how much I loved stories and how I wanted to be a writer before I wanted to be a songwriter. And so I began this crazy journey of trying to write book one of the Wingfeather Saga, probably around 2002 or 3. And it took about 5 years because, book one, who knows if this is going to ever turn into anything real. So you're doing it in between stuff. And I finally got a publisher, and they published book one and book two. And I was kind of off to the races at that point the typical model was I would make a record and then tour the record and do all the stuff that was involved in the music. And then as soon as that was done, I would pivot into, okay, I've got a book contract and I've got to write the book. And a lot of times they would overlap so that I was working on, I vividly remember working on book 3 on the tour bus before sound check, and so it was a lot of intense stuff, but I kind of loved all of it. And I guess book 1 came out 2008. What year did the last book come out? Was it 14?
14.
14 was the when we finally finished. It was about a 10-year process to tell the whole story. And that's the thing is, like, I was talking to a young writer not long ago, and they were asking about their first book, and I was like, what you need to do is stop thinking about this as your book and begin thinking of it as your first book out of 10 books. Just have a long view. Like you're writing a song, don't think of it as this as your only shot at making a good song. Think of this as the first of 1,000 songs you're going to write, and you're going to be slowly building this pile of work. And the only thing we really have any control over as people who are doing creative work is the work, right? We don't get to be in charge of the result of the work. That's God's business. So our job is to be obedient with what we've been given and entrust the rest of it to God's good pleasure. And if He decides that He wants this to be successful, quote unquote, in a worldly sense, then it will be. But really, like you're writing the song for people that you'll never meet, and you may be long gone by the time that song makes its way to the person who needs to hear it. So if you have this view of a life of obedience with your gifting, then that kind of like reprioritizes the way you're thinking about it.
Well, and I'd say, Phil, I would say the same thing for our season 1 in the animation production is exactly that. Like there's been moments of a lot of tension from the artists, like, oh, we got to solve this in the most brilliant way possible. I'm like, it's season 1, y'all. We can only do what you can do. Like, don't try to get to the finale before you've started, and just enjoy the process. Years ago, somebody turned to me. We were working for VeggieTales, and it was the big film premiere for the Pirates Who Don't Do Anything. And he said, this is over tomorrow, and if you've been working all this time for this moment, this is such a bummer. Yeah. And you got to enjoy day to day of what we do. Over here in the field of animation, which I know, Phil, you felt this, but it's always the kids' table. When you think about entertainment, there's narrative feature film. It's like, you don't get to go visit those guys, but you get to hang out at the kids' table of animation and sippy cups and enjoy the party, So just enjoy it. Like, if you don't have fun doing it, this craft, really comes out of those points. And if it's tension filled and you're trying to make the most perfect thing ever, you're just doomed,
Well, the counterpoint is that it's so easy to get sucked into trying to make something that the masses are going to enjoy. Or and you want it to be successful. You want to reach a broad base of people, but at some point you have to be like your vision for the thing, right? This passion that you have to make something timeless and beautiful that is going to outlast whatever the trends are going to be doing. It's such a better way to do it.
Yeah, I love it. Love what you're saying. And just for those out there, the other thing, I was actually talking to Andrew just before the call, but I was saying, if you've got a dream, and I'd really like to encourage people out there, whether it's in the arts or movie making or music. I just want to quickly touch on Joseph, David, and Moses' life, because Joseph had a dream, and then he ends up getting sold into slavery, ends up in prison, and then eventually he gets to his dream. So his dream was true, but he had to go through some hard times to get there. Moses was given a calling. He ends up in the desert for 40 years before he gets back to really free the people in God's way. David is anointed king. Then he ends up in the wilderness for 7 years. So I just want to say, if you've got a dream in your life and you're going for it and it feels like you're in a desert or that's normal. That's part of the process. And Chris, I was loving what you were saying about enjoy the ride and just have fun every day and enjoy it. Just to say, thanks so much. There's so many pledges coming in while we're talking, and really, really appreciate it, guys. It's so awesome to feel the support of the community.
Which,
for me,
it's just the most amazing thing, isn't it? Like Andrew and I, we're on the receiving end of what you're experiencing right now, which is as people, you're always trying to tell people about the cool thing you're going to make, and then it feels like sometimes nobody listens, and that banker, that investor is like, we're not sure. And then to put it out here and to have every time one of these came across the bottom saying, hey, we believe in what you're doing and we believe in it so much we're going to put money towards it and resource, it's just devastatingly beautiful. Like it just kind of wrecks you. So I'm thrilled that you get to experience, because we had such delight going through this, and we're just cheering you guys on.
Yeah, thank you, man. That's awesome. I'm really loving it. And tell me, I've got a quick question for you guys. In terms of COVID and working with people remotely, and has that created, I know my particular journey, but I'm interested in yours. Has that been created opportunities or challenges or both? Or how's it going for you in actual production now with Wingfeather?
Yeah, there's a timeliness, to so much of what we've experienced, where we feel this is orchestration, and certainly the timing in which Angel Studios came to us, and then the timing of COVID, because it means that a lot of really big players figured out work product before we did. So I don't have to train a storyboard artist how to work with us remotely on Zoom, because they've been doing that for the studios for the last year and a half. Right. So I just feel like we've been a great beneficiary of all of this kind of social training and how to work, and especially artistic work. Garrett Taylor, who joined us as our art director, was at Pixar for over 10 years and had the last 2 years that really working remotely. While they were teaching Lightyear, doing that remotely, so he was completely comfortable in knowing how to work with the artists as an art director and keep them motivated and connected. And, I think we're all still feeling that out. Like, what's the best way to make sure we keep a culture? We'd all love to be in rooms together. Sometimes that's not practical. I don't know if you've heard this, but real estate in Nashville is like super expensive. And so we're like, what can we do to keep our dollars on screen and not in the furniture, or in the equipment? So for us, it's really liberated the breadth of artists that we get to work with, not only here in the state of Tennessee, but also just around the world, as we find people with great discipline who are passionate about the project. I think like you've experienced, when they hear about it, something that's distinctive, like not every other cartoon out on the streamers, they just get excited, like, hey, I'd rather contribute to something that's going to last for a while than this other disposable project that I got with one of the studios.
No, that's great. Now, I found a similar thing. The challenge is sometimes keeping culture if you're not together, but your expanded pool of talent, and we've been working with people in Spain. We've got an incredible team here, but working also with some guys who had worked at Pixar for 20 years, some guys in Spain. And it just creates this beautiful melting pot of creativity, which has just been amazing to me how that's happened. Yeah. Andrew, I had a question on story process, because for me, it's one thing, and obviously it's a goal of ours to make these beautiful images, and whatever style we're going for, our styles are slightly different. We're trying to achieve different palettes. But at the end of the day, for me, it goes down primarily to storytelling. Like, it's really hard to tell a good story. I mean, it's like if you watch a good golf player, he's got a good drive, he's got a good chip and a good putt, So, talk me through story process for you, but particularly how important storyboarding is, and animatics, and that stage of storytelling, because that's where so much of the magic's happening, isn't it?
It really is, and we're just now dipping into that part of it. Up till now, it's been a lot of script revision. How do we tell the story in 6 episodes in a way that each one has its own arc, but also there's an overall arc that you're going to see. And one of the really cool things is, like, the visual storytelling is so different from the book, right? Like, you just have to approach it differently. And I think that I'm not like most authors. I'm not as precious about it, because I think one of the things that music taught me was that collaboration is really great. Like, I come into the studio with a song, and it's this bare bones thing, and then it's a blast to see all of these musicians add their own thing to it, and then the song becomes more than what it was before. And I kind of feel like I'm coming into this with quote unquote, which is the Wingfeather Saga books. And then all these amazing artists are coming in and adding their ideas and their beauty to it. So the way that I felt when we were hashing out the scripts a few months ago, it was like listening to this incredible team of people who knew the book so well, but who had all this experience in film and television, figuring out how to visually tell the story. I was like, it feels like the Wingfeather Saga is moving closer to its purest form, you know, like the story is actually refined in the process. It's not getting bloated. It's getting pared down to its like most beautiful. Yeah. And so that's been like, as an author, thrilling to see, because it almost feels like I'm even another step removed. It's like the story is this objective thing up there, you know, that exists on its own and doesn't rely on a nerd like me to hold it together anymore. You know? So it's really cool to see how beautiful it is when you get a team of people with a common goal, you know, to serve a project. And you're in this situation where it's like you're working with scripture. You know, like the story is cool, but then how in the world do you go about making that visual? It's crazy.
Yeah, that's it is a big challenge, eh? It's a huge challenge. I'll swing back to that. Just for the guys who are on the stream, if you've got any questions, sorry, I meant to say it at the beginning, for Andrew, for Chris, for myself, anything about process or about the David movie or Wingfeather Saga, please feel free to pop questions through on the stream, and then we'll go to questions just now, actually, and we'd be glad to try and answer as best we can. I mean, Chris, I had a quick question for you as the creative process. There's a saying of Orson Welles, which is the absence of restriction is the enemy of creativity. So one thing we know with budgets, we've certainly got restrictions, but managing artists, and how do you and Andrew work together? Like, just talk me through that process as an executive producer and creative. How's that tension? Art and budgets, and how does it all, get pushed through? What's your experience on that? Because it's quite a fun part of developing, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And I think, like Andrew was just saying, I think you have to immediately accept. I had heard years ago from Chris Cuser, he's a development exec at DreamWorks that I worked under, talked a lot about in developing a story that everyone in the room has a responsibility to that story, but the story exists in kind of this other space. And so the art director, the lead story artist, the director, everybody has a responsibility to that thing, but it lives out here. And the moment anyone in the room takes and clutches and makes it theirs, we have a problem, because every time we talk about the story, it's now personal, and we can't appropriately discuss and explore and let it continue to flourish and grow on its own. And I think that that's the thing that we try to do the most is in this pushing, get it out here objectively where we can, right? Where the story exists and it's playing. Andrew wrote a version of it in the books, and now we're getting to see another come alive. And I think much like for David, for you guys, that's a real person, and with real stuff that happened, and someone wrote down a version of it in scripture. Doesn't mean that there aren't a lot of in-between moments that occurred that become that narrative tissue that has to be true to it. And I think that the thing that we're all thinking about, because a lot of the members of the team, myself included, are huge fans of the books, that we don't want to disappoint whatever imagination came from those books. And I think that in books like Wingfeather Saga, where there's a consistent world, and Andrew really worked out to build the world, much like for David, there's a real world that it's a part of. It's easier to get visualization. When some fantasy books are written with so many pieces that everybody's imagination runs different ways, right? I think it's one of the reasons that Lord of the Rings adapted so well, is because Tolkien had given us such important bits of data about what it looked like, that when it came to screen, it's like, yeah, exactly, that's what it looks like, right? And I think Andrew did the same for Wingfeather, and I think you're in the similar position where there's a lot of texture that's already there in the story that you just get to lift out. And you want to be faithful to those people that read that story and understand it that way, and also give them a new, fresh experience, right? And we don't want to do derivative work. We want to find what's a new way into the story to surprise and delight you. And I think that's our key to get through that. That we get to work with these people, and all of our artists are doing that. We're very much story driven, where we want everybody to contribute and say, hey, I see this. What about this opportunity? That sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm going to read the question on screen, and I'll let you guys answer it. So I want to become an animator. So how do I go about it if I want to learn both 2D and 3D and create something like this for God? So Andrew, do you want to grab your thoughts on that? I can chip in as well once you go first there.
Well, I would say my son is just graduated with an animation degree from a Christian university in Nashville. So Lipscomb University has a great program. Tom Bancroft is kind of leading it up, and he learned a ton about it in a really healthy environment. So I think doing just become a student of the craft as much as you can. There are great avenues that exist now where you can learn how to do this in a really healthy environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that being projects that are meaningful, that choice is hard, right? Because the job's offered versus the project can be a difficult choice sometimes, mm-hmm. and we recognize that this field has a lot of really beautiful projects that are just inspiring and lovely, and others that are kind of more base and something maybe you have to make a different choice, and that can be tough. And we talk to artists all the time that have to kind of guide their careers based on those projects. And but the discipline of 2D and the beauty of form and all the craft of that and 3D are very similar. And so I think studying the craft and bringing your own self into it to make something. Don't try to repeat what you've seen from other animators. Learn their piece and then contribute yours in your own gifting. I think is really the thing I would encourage you to follow.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. The only thing I would add is there's something besides animation school you mentioned, Andrew. Depending where you are geographically, there's some incredible animation schools all around the world. So, I would really encourage you to study an animation school if possible, and actually study, like you're saying, learn the craft, and then work your way in from there. While we wait for another question, there is another question. So it says, what was the lullaby that David sung in the demo? So you guys didn't see it at the beginning because it's been on previous live streams, but just so you guys know, it's Psalm 23 that he's singing in Hebrew. So that's what you're hearing when he sings, is him singing Psalm 23 in Hebrew, to answer that question, yeah. Which kind of goes to my one point while we wait for the next question. Andrew, Chris, you were talking about it, about the taking the author and then trying to be authentic to what he's written, but grow on it. And as I look at what we're doing with David, coming off the Bible, it's a big task and an exciting one, because we want to be authentic. Like I was saying on one previous live stream, if you take comic book fans like Spider-Man, Superman, the comic book fans are very intense about the rules of that world, and you can make an entertaining piece, but you can't go put Superman's cape on Spider-Man, because that's just, you wouldn't do that if you knew the rules of the world. But likewise, for those of us who've got a faith and coming from a biblical base, there's some really important things not to cut across and break. Like, stay authentic to the scripture, but you can still be entertaining on that without breaking the truth about that. So one of our passions on David is to make a highly entertaining piece that's still very authentic and accurate to what's there. And I think you and I were chatting earlier, Andrew, it's quite a challenge. We've, just so you guys, went on 4 trips to Israel just to seep ourselves in, like, the geography of where we went, the Valley of Eli, the Engedi, and we took an archaeologist with us, and we just really took time to seep ourselves in that world. And even on the musical side, I wanted to jump to music, Andrew, because you're an incredible musician, and I want to talk about how you wove music into storytelling in Wingfeather. But quickly, why I'm asking that question is because obviously David wrote half the Psalms in the Bible. He was an incredible songwriter and musician. So we, in the David film, are really wanting to make music flow through the movie and like weave it into our narrative and our storytelling. But tell me, from your side, Andrew, just music and story, just some thoughts on how you go about weaving them in together.
Yeah, well, because I'm a Tolkien fan, I love the fact that songs play such a big role in those books. It adds to the lore of the world. It makes it feel like it's a more authentic world if there are these songs, that have existed. And so when I was writing the Wingfeather Saga, because I'm a songwriter, I just kind of plugged in lyrics here and there and ended up writing one song called My Love Has Gone Across the Sea. Like, I actually put that one to music. But I was kind of wary about, I want this to exist in book form. And, we've all heard like cheesy adaptations of songs that kind of is better to live in your imagination in many ways, and that's been one of the cool challenges of the Wingfeather Saga, is that, like, wow, this story is kind of taking on flesh in a more significant way as a TV series. And so you've got to actually think about what does a whistle harp sound like? It's the instrument that they play. What is the like mode of the song? Like what kind of melodies are they using? I don't know. It's really tricky. So we're having to begin the process of figuring out how to take those things that existed in my mind and actually like make them work in an in-world way. And so maybe come back to me in a year and ask me how that's going.
Cool. Just thanks again, Jason. Pledged $1,000. Thanks for all the pledges coming in there. I think that's, Andrew, just going back to the beauty of art is that there's no clear-cut rules of this is how you bake the cake. It's just, that's one of the fun things about it, is it's so unique, each project, each challenge. But my main thing, and I think what I'd love to see what you guys are going to do, I just can't wait for it to come out, because how music and story fits together can be so beautiful if it's done right. So yeah, for those of you just joining, if you want to know how to support the David animated feature film, you can go to angel.com/David. And there's been some incredible pledges coming in through the night and through the day, your time. So thank you. We're going to wrap up fairly soon because it's lunchtime, and I know these two guests of ours are in the middle of production, so I'm sure they need to get back to their meetings. But I just wanted to check if there's any final questions for Chris or Andrew or myself before we wrap up. And then if there's not, it's absolutely fine. But just to see if there's any questions. Yeah, and just see if there's one there. Oh, okay. Which animation software do you recommend? That's a good question. I'll dive in, Chris, and please add to it, obviously. I mean, there's obviously such a range of animation softwares, and it's how they all connect and collaborate that creates a final picture. But one of the main software programs I'd say that you could look at is a program called Maya, for 3D animation. Anyway, it's one of the main kind of off-the-shelf animation softwares. But Chris, I don't know if you want to chime in with any thoughts on software there at all.
No, you're right. Maya is definitely the dominant out there. I know a lot of folks are having a lot of fun in other programs, Blender, and there's some animation tools now showing up in the game engines like Unreal for CG. Yeah. On the 2D side, I'm always shocked at how much Flash is still globally the 2D standard. That most are wanting to get over to Toon Boom, which is a really big 2D software, but Flash continues to be kind of the other one. So and they both behave very differently. Was it Character Animate is what they call that now, I think, inside the Adobe Suite. But yeah, those are good ones to get into, and they all have student versions. So I think people wanting to learn and get into it, there's on-ramp.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Chris. That's some really good comments there. Thank you. So the question here is, I'm very excited for both projects. For the David movie, will more biblical films be released in the future with the same animation? And I'll answer that. And then Chris, I'll answer that first, and you can answer for the Wingfeather Saga, what inspired the uniquely, beautifully, painterly style for the animation? So quickly, I'll answer the first question. Yeah, it is absolutely our goal to release more biblical films after David. But obviously, we want to just focus on making this first and really hitting it out the park. The other thing I would say, just so for those of you joining this stream, is one of my passions is that the film also grows into a Broadway musical. I was saying, if you look at Lion King, and I'm not because of the money, but if you look at Lion King, the musical is the single biggest earner for Disney of all time. It's earned $8 billion, the Broadway musical of Lion King. And it's just astounding. And so I would love it if David could also turn into a Broadway musical and also could lead to other animations. But over to the Wingfeather question for Chris and Andrew. Yeah, whichever one of you wants to answer that.
We got art of books from the different projects and studios and just fans of. And every time you look at an art of book for animation, often the art itself is just so evocative and beautiful and inspiring. And it really began with that question, what if that art could go right to the screen? What if the artist's work could be directly there? And that began a long bit of research into what the technology would have to be to allow that to happen. That started back in the fall of 2015, and then obviously making that short in 2017. Deploying that technology to try to bring this different visual style. And I think that the story itself lent itself that way, where the story has a lot of curiosities around the corners and inviting the audience to kind of think about what might else be in this world of the Wingfeather Saga. And visually, we wanted to marry that and allow the two to kind of inform each other. So it's kind of like, well, the story then chose the visual style to echo itself, to reinforce it. And we just are so thrilled with what we've seen so far, and can't wait to show more of it. Much like your short, like it's like the beginning of something, and you want to show them the rest of it. And we're so excited to do it.
No, I want to say, as an animation, obviously I'm in the industry, your guys' style is so beautiful and so like got its own DNA, and I just think it's going to be amazing when it comes out properly. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
The last question, and then I'm going to close with a shout out to Angel Studios from my side, but very quickly to answer this last question from Jennifer. At the David movie, how much of David's life is the film planning to cover? And that's such an awesome question, because we were tempted when we originally set out just to start with David and go to when he fought Goliath, and that could be a moment where you end the film. But my passion is to tell much more of his life. There's so much more of his life that people don't know about. And so where we're going to tell the story from when he's a shepherd boy to when he becomes king of Judah is the plan. So about a third of the way through the movie is the battle with Goliath, about the end of the first act, and then the next 2/3 of the movie go on to where he actually becomes king of Judah. But those little scenes they were showing you there come from the demo while he's still a shepherd boy. So from shepherd to king, I think you could say. And one of our themes for David is warrior, shepherd, poet, king, because he had this beautiful cross-section in his personality. So how I wanted to end, Chris, and I'll leave you guys to say a concluding remark after me, and then we'll go back to the picture. But I just wanted to give a shout-out to Angel Studios. That's why I'm wearing the T-shirt, because I think Angel Studios are just such an amazing people, for starters. And the one thing my wife and I were saying is, like, life's too short to work with people that you don't love working with. So one thing I can say about the Angel Studios guys, they're just awesome people, like such great integrity, just so relational, looking out for the win-win for creators, which is rare, because as I've dealt with them doing the business plan, they were really on the side of the creator as well, which is amazing, But why it's important for people listening, and as you look at supporting a project, because it's one thing to make a great project, another massive part of getting a film to market. It's like a book, you can write a great book, but no one ever gets to read it, or a song. And I just really wanted to end off, and I know we talked about it earlier, but Angel Studios model where you get the crowd involved in funding it, and then they're part of the journey on marketing it. I just think is so exciting, and I really want to say thank you to Angel Studios for the courage you guys have, the way you think out the box, the way you partner with creatives is so beautiful, and I'm just really excited. I'm loving working with Angel Studios and excited for a long-term journey with them. And it's so important for us as creators that we can make something beautiful, but then actually get it out to the world and get it seen. And we've got some very cool ideas, Chris and Andrew, on how we're going to get the David movie into cinemas, which I won't dive into now. But I just want to say thank you guys so much for joining us. And is there anything you'd like to say to people on the stream as we close out the live stream before we close out?
No, I'm just so thankful for the opportunity to be out in front of people that are interested in projects like these, right? From Wingfeather to David, really distinctive things that most often wouldn't exist without the support of these fans. Not only financially in that side, but also just being there to rally support, to say, hey, we want this to exist. We worked in this kind of middle space for a long time where it's a little too Christian to be just straight fantasy, but maybe not Christian enough for a certain part of the audience, because it's got magic things in it. And you're like, wow, this is difficult. And the validation from fans, and I know you're experiencing the same, is just, it brings so much joy. And I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to be on this platform. And we're cheering for you guys, Phil. We're just so excited for you. And can't wait to see where
it looks great what you guys are doing. I love the Bible. And so the David story has always been like, it's hard to read the David story in Scripture and not see it as a movie at times in your head, because it's so dramatic. It's got everything, And when I heard that you guys are doing this, I was like, come on, make it awesome.
That's right.
And so I'm just so you guys are taking the challenge. Everything I've seen looks fantastic, and I love what you're doing.
Thank
you. Keep it. Thanks everybody for helping support these guys.
Yeah. Thank you guys for taking time. I know you're in the middle of production. So Andrea and Chris, thank you. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And we're going to end off by just showing a little pitch video. So thanks to Andrea and Chris. What amazing visitors and guests on the show. Really appreciate them. And for those of you who'd like to support, you can go to angel.com/David and find out more about the project there. And just thank you guys so much for your time. We are just so passionate about telling the story of David in a fun, entertaining, adventurous, expansive way that just catches the imagination of the world. So we're going to end off with a little pitch video. I hope you enjoy it, and we'll be back with another live stream this time next week. Thank you so much for your time and for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And for the pledges that came in, thank you. And God bless you all, and we'll hopefully connect with new people and some of you next week again. We're just going to end off by showing the pitch video one more time.
What if there were a Bible movie that was as powerful as The Prince of Egypt and as fun as Tangled? That's about as likely to happen as David beating Goliath. See what I did there? Well, it's happening. We are making an epic David and Goliath animated film. David will be an animated feature film that shows the power of the David story with the humor, music, and adventure of your favorite animated movie. And by expressing your interest in investing, you can help bring David to life with the production quality of a classic animated film while revealing God through one of the Bible's most powerful stories.
Did you see that? Anyone!
A group of filmmakers in South Africa called Sunrise Animation Studios has been carefully assembling the right team to make David. This David project has already generated $19 million in investments and inspired some of the world's leading animation film professionals to leave major Hollywood studios and be a part of this story. The Sunrise team includes senior contributors to movies like Moana, Monsters, Inc., Soul, and Big Hero 6. As well as Grammy Award-winning composers. Basically, David is the answer to the question, what if the best Bible stories were told by the world's best animators and musicians? Click the link to express your interest today. David tells the story of a young shepherd who gains fame as a musician and a warrior for the king.
I'm trying to protect us from this Philistine.
He shows the viewer what it truly means to be a man after God's own heart. David is the original underdog that has gone on to inspire the greatest underdog stories of all time. Don't believe me? Just re-watch Harry Potter and Star Wars. Instead of using magic or the Force to defeat giant villains, David uses the power of God to overcome a literal Goliath. And he reminds each of us that we're the underdog of our own stories. And through God, all things are possible. David's story has never been told on a cinematic level. And to accomplish that, you need a combination of a good budget and good storytellers. The faith community has the right storytellers, but most independent Bible films look like independent Bible films. But with your investments, combined with the storytelling prowess of Sunrise Animation Studios, we are finally telling David's story in a way that belongs on the silver screen. And, did I mention, it's a musical? So beautiful. The creation of David the movie is a Goliath-sized story. Sunrise knew that in order for a small film studio to make an epic movie on par with the big boys, they'd have to nail it between the eyes, pun intended. And after all these years, they've assembled the right team to go the distance. All that's missing is you. Click the link to watch a small teaser we made for David. David will be distributed by Angel Studios, the same film studio behind the smash hit success The Chosen, a TV show about Jesus that has over 300 million views and has generated over $100 million in revenue. Sunrise Animation Studios created Jungle Beat, an animated brand that has a feature movie on Netflix with a sequel in production and gets 140 million monthly views on YouTube. If they can do that with a monkey and an elephant, imagine what they can do with one of the most iconic figures of all time. When you express interest in investing in the animated film David, you're not just helping to create an epic animated adventure based on one of the most popular books of all time. You're creating a movie in one of the most successful categories of film. The Prince of Egypt made $218 million in revenue at the box office, plus 2 decades of DVD, TV, and streaming sales. And like The Prince of Egypt, David also has powerful songs and breathtaking animation. Plus, one thing The Prince of Egypt doesn't have: this baby lamb. You do the math. And aside from the potential financial return, bringing such an important story to life can be incredibly rewarding.
Hi there, my name is Phil Cunningham, and I was inspired by this character and thought if we could tell an animated feature film around the life of David, it would inspire people to take on the giants in their life and to live bigger, braver, bolder lives.
David has the chance to be the next big movie that every kid, parent, and Pixar fan will fall in love with. Click the link to express interest in investing today.